The Autobiography of a Brown Buffalo, written by Mexican-American author Oscar Zeta Acosta, is a fictionalized autobiography set in Oakland, California. The story follows an unnamed lawyer who becomes deeply disillusioned with the American state while working for a poverty alleviation agency in Oakland. Through a series of flashbacks, the narrator explores his relationships with his psychiatrist, coworkers, and friends, engaging in imaginary conversations with historical figures whom he admires. These interactions help shape his unique American identity, which reflects the prevalent feelings of alienation and existential dread in mid-20th century society. The novel is divided into 4 main sections, with the first section taking place entirely on July 1, 1967. Interspersed with glimpses into the narrator's past. On that fateful morning, the narrator expresses his dissatisfaction with both his work and his physical appearance. He engages in dialogues with his heroes, James Cagney, Humphrey Bogart, and Edward G. Robinson, who offer words of encouragement. In contrast, the voice of his psychiatrist, Dr. Serban, represents his inner conflicts, particularly regarding his attraction to his friend's wife. The narrator then heads to his office, where he toils in a mundane legal job, using alcohol and drugs as a means of escape. He receives the news of his secretary, Pauline's, death from cancer, which further deepens his sense of loss and despair. Reflecting on his past, the narrator recalls a time when he battled a life-threatening illness and formed a close bond with a couple named Alice and Ted Casey. However, his romantic involvement with Alice strains the friendship, leading to Ted's hostility and the end of their connection. Returning to the present, the narrator seeks to make amends with Ted by visiting his house, but finds it empty. He then goes to Dr. Serban's office, but frustration prompts him to leave while waiting. Seeking solace and companionship, he visits a local bar where he encounters a group of friends, each of whom embodies social outcast status in San Francisco. However, his sexual dissatisfaction and longing lead him to call his ex-girlfriend, June, who rejects his advances. Overwhelmed by his emotions, the narrator succumbs to exhaustion, passing out and bringing an end to July 1. Acosta's Autobiography of a Brown Buffalo delves into the personal struggles, disillusionment, and search for identity experienced by its protagonist. Through vivid storytelling and introspective musings, the novel captures the essence of a man grappling with his place in an America that fails to fulfill its promises. The narrator's encounters and reflections serve as a microcosm of the collective angst and yearning for belonging that defined the mid-20th century era. The second section of Autobiography of a Brown Buffalo follows the narrator on a road trip outside of San Francisco. Driving under the influence, he reflects on his family's journey to the United States. While the narrator was born in Texas and primarily raised in Riverbank, California, his parents immigrated illegally from Mexico in search of a better life. His father later served in the army during World War II and obtained citizenship. The narrator describes their cramped living conditions in a run-down house. He recounts his various unrequited love interests and shares his own experiences after high school, including joining the Air Force and questioning his faith while volunteering as a missionary. After a tumultuous period in New York, he finds himself at a party hosted by a childhood friend named Karen in Wilmington. The next morning, after a night of excessive drug and alcohol use, he awakens next to Ernest Hemingway's gravestone. The narrative then returns to the present, as the narrator continues his drive through California. In the third section, the narrator arrives at Alpine, the destination of his road trip. Feeling despondent, he stays at a hotel and later seeks out an old friend named Bobby Miller. He encounters Bobby's girlfriend, Bobby, as well as an intimidating acquaintance named King. The narrator delves into his life story, recounting his decision to enroll in community college after leaving the Air Force. Inspired by a professor who encouraged him to explore his career options, he briefly considers joining the police academy in Los Angeles, but ultimately decides against it after connecting with a friend named Elle, who had a negative experience with the police. Instead, the narrator enrolls in a liberal arts program at San Francisco State University. Returning to the present, the narrator gets into a car accident after unknowingly ingesting LSD. He manages to find King, who assists him and takes him to the bus station. Before parting ways, they exchange contact information. The final section of the novel spans a longer time frame than the previous sections. The narrator disembarks from a bus in Vail, Colorado, and takes on a series of minimum wage jobs, often being fired from them. After a few months, he returns to his birthplace, El Paso, hoping to gain clarity about his life's purpose. He crosses the border into Mexico and engages in encounters with prostitutes. A trivial altercation with a hotel concierge leads to his arrest and subsequent trial. The judge reprimands him for contributing to the issues at the Mexican-American border and imposes a fine. Ultimately, the narrator returns to Los Angeles with a determination to become a political activist and utilize his legal skills to effect positive change in American society. In a symbolic gesture, he adopts the middle name Zeta to honor his Mexican heritage. Acosta's Autobiography of a Brown Buffalo concludes with the narrator's renewed sense of purpose and his commitment to advocating for social and political reform. His personal journey, marked by struggles, self-discovery, and connections to his Mexican roots, serves as a reflection of the broader quest for identity and justice during that era.